It's your boy, the Insane Game Manic here. It's Get So Manic, Insane Game Free, back at it with another one again. So, I haven't really done any more of the Why I Like series in a while. And realistically, I feel like it needs to go to a My Hero character. And a lot of people, because of how I portray a lot of my Black Clover type videos, since I compare My Hero and Black Clover a lot, and because I overall enjoy Black Clover more than My Hero, I sometimes don't give My Hero the credit it deserves. So this video being a Why I Like on who I think I'm coming to realize is my favorite My Hero character, overall, like I think he's my favorite character in the series. This is why I like Endeavor. I almost wanted to go flame on, and I realized no, wrong fire character. It doesn't work. Endeavor really doesn't have a catchphrase. He kind of is just him. So Endeavor, like I said, I think earlier today I was kind of going through my head of how I wanted to do this video, and I think I've just now come to the realization that he's probably my favorite character in the manga, like in the series in general. And it's weird because he's introduced so poorly, but he's also introduced like a gag. So Endeavor is a character to me that has many different layers, some of which we still haven't seen. We just have an understanding of, but we haven't seen it all the way. He's a character whose primary relation seems to be a story of redemption and atonement. Primarily atonement, but like redemption to a degree. Just to give a quick backdrop on him, he's Todoroki's father, had a very bad obsession with All Might and being as strong and being the number one hero, but he realized that he could never do it, so he then became obsessed with like breeding a son or a successor, not even a son, but a successor who could become the number one hero because he could never do it. Which gets into Shoto's birth and the birth of his siblings. That Shoto was the one they got right, essentially. I think that's the reason why he's the youngest, I believe. But that means when he finally got the quirk combination he wanted, he kind of mentally drove his mother insane and abused the fuck out of Shoto, trying to get him to get stronger really quickly. In the grand scheme of things, it did work out for Shoto because Shoto was really good with his quirk early on. But as a result, he caused a lot of trauma to not only his wife, but all of his kids, even though Shoto got a lot of the brunt of it. All of the kids were very abused and took it in very different tiers. We get to see Natsuo doesn't handle it. He's probably the one who handles it the worst next to even her mom has gone through a bigger change and recovery in the series than he has. Fuyumi has her feelings about it, but I think her want in she really wants a family, so I almost feel like that's overridden her trauma. Not saying she doesn't have it, but still. And Shoto's like around half and half, which is funny considering his design and his ability. And so when Endeavor was first introduced, Endeavor was introduced as kind of like this crazy fucking psychopath. Like a character whose primary issue was the fact that he was like a Shaw. Like he used to be memey. People used to meme the fuck out of him out of like the first and second season because he would introduce himself Shaw. He used to do that like 3 or 4 times, and he went through and it was goofy as hell. Even though like he was confirmed to be like a piece of shit who like abused his entire family in this search of power. And I don't think it was until... See, and this is the one thing I don't like about it, is that his early days have still been kind of hidden in mystery. And we still don't really know... And the way his change was triggered is not handled the best way. I get what the idea is, but it's not handled in the best way. Essentially, the way his change and his change of thinking shifted was during, I believe, the Camino incident, where everyone got exposed to All Might's like true form and the fact that he was losing his power, and like Endeavor had kind of a pseudo freak out when he saw him, talking about what's with that pitiful back, and they kind of show it like, with you looking like that, then what was it all for? Like almost like he was reeling back in his head, like with you looking like that, because his original goal was essentially to have Shoto Todoroki become the #1 hero by defeating All Might, because his power would be perfect versus what his power is. Endeavor's just fire, whereas Todoroki's fire and ice, which we don't even find out until later what the real reasoning why Endeavor could never get to All Might's level is. We find out later that essentially, because his ability is just straight fire, if he gets too hot, his body temperature rises too quickly, and as a human being, it fucks up his body functions. That's the advantage Todoroki has, being half ice and half fire, is that he doesn't have that problem, because he can always use his cool side to keep him from overheating, whereas Endeavor couldn't. Endeavor realized it and went crazy trying to produce a son that could beat All Might. But when he saw that All Might had gotten that weak, it's almost like he went back and reevaluated. But wait a minute, if you're that weak, then what was all that for? What was all the shit I did to my wife? And the shit I did to my kids? And what was all that for? Like, it's almost like as he's reeling in his head about the insanity of it all, he came to the realization like, oh, what the fuck did I do to my wife? What the fuck did I do to my son? And I think that's the way it's supposed to be portrayed, but it's such a short, quick section in the anime/manga, you don't get that feeling, you don't get that whole idea from it. That's the one thing I don't like, because that's it's a bigger importance than it's portrayed in the manga. But the rest of his development from this point forward, I love to death. Partially his interactions with Hawks, that like Endeavor is considered the overly serious type, and Hawks is like super carefree, so they actually work well together, and you love their interactions because there's a lot of Hawks take things seriously. Hawks like, oh, it's alright, because they're kind of like bros. That, and because we find out later that Hawks is a huge Endeavor fan, because Endeavor, in a word, is tenacity. He is like that one character who refuses to stop. Like, they always said that shit about how All Might is the type of dude who could laugh or smile in the face of danger and create this calming presence over the world. Endeavor's like pure tenacity, because he's not as strong as All Might. He will struggle, but he won't stop. And that's the thing about like Endeavor that puts him as high as he is. Regardless of what you think about him as a person, that man will not stop. He will not stop. That's Endeavor in a nutshell. He is tenacity personified, which is part of the reason why I like him. Endeavor is such a hard thing for me, because he's a character who's inherently fucked up in life, but I gotta give him a lot of respect, because he's a character who didn't run from it. He's not running from it. He's trying to deal with it head on, and he's still making mistakes. But like, here's the thing, and the way I always looked at it is that like, as someone like myself who didn't have a father figure in my life, do I value the father who fucking just left and never came back, or do I value the father who did the same shit but came back and wanted? Because realistically, what's the harder route? To run away from your problems, or to fuck up and then have to turn around? Like, it's essentially like if I ran through a fucking neighborhood and destroyed a bunch of houses as I ran through it. In a deadbeat dad situation, I would have just kept running. But in Endeavor's situation, he is then now turning around to walk back through that same neighborhood to help rebuild it, while at the same time getting spit on and pretty much dogged out for the damage he caused in the first place. That takes a lot. That takes a lot for a person to do, to be like, fuck. And the fact that he's trying to face it head on, and he's trying to change, and he is making moves, especially as of recently, he is doing things to try to improve the lives of the family that he ruined. That shit is just really respectable to me. Because the reality is that a lot of people make fucking mistakes. It's just that some mistakes hurt more people in relation than less people. In his situation, he primarily hurt his fucking family. Whereas in other situations, you could hurt an entire fucking city block of people. He's lucky he caught himself this early into it. I say early, but it is still relatively early, and it's already starting to make changes. He's a character who I generally feel bad for, but I respect the shit out of in a lot of other ways. Because on top of him being like dealing with the shit with his family, he's also dealing with the fact that all of a sudden he's the number one hero, and he has to make a name for himself as Endeavor. Not as like, but he knows he didn't really, but also dealing with the reality that he didn't even earn that number one spot like he wanted. He got it because All Might fell, not because he rose to the top. Not because, Endeavor rose to the top. And as a hero, Endeavor, for the most part, is like on his shit. He's not as strong as All Might, but for the rest of it, he's pretty much on his shit. Especially during the internship arc, you get to see a lot of it. He is on his shit. Even the end of season 4 that recently showed up, he is on his shit. And so he's a character I like. I like those kind of characters who I can relate to, but also but he's also like an entertaining to watch. Like, you get a lot of his funny moments when he's with Hawks, but you also get like real moments with him a lot because of his family situation. This is spoilers, so yeah. I'm going to talk about his brother, about his sons, and his daughter, and because I think one of the scenes that hurt me the most was in the internship arc, which was the last family-related development with him, which is that he keeps saying during this little mini arc, he says he's having the same dream about his family. Like, he goes to sleep thinking about what he can do for his family, which means he's still thinking about it, even if he's not saying anything. He's always thinking about it, which is a huge point. That he's not just only acknowledging it when shit happens. He says he's constantly going to sleep thinking about what he can do for his family. He's having the same dream. And the dream he's having is that they're all smiling and laughing like him, like his wife, his daughter, and his sons are there together laughing, but he's never in the dream with them. Which is a slow burn conclusion to what he comes to at the end of the arc, which is that because his son's like, because they mention, like, he comes to the realization, he has a lot of cool character moments in this arc. I think that arc is primarily for Endeavor than anyone else. He's like, because Deku says something along the lines of like how Shoto and Fuyumi and Natsuo are or even his wife are slowly working themselves up to forgive Endeavor. Like they're already in they want to forgive him. They're just waiting for him to do like the required thing to get themselves to forgive him. And Endeavor recognizes this. So at the end of the arc, once he hears it, he's like, and because of how you guys are so caring and loving, you want to forgive me. But I'm going to let you know, and I think this was the best thing he could have done, be like, you don't have to forgive me. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I'm asking for atonement, which does not require you to forgive me. You don't need to forgive me. Essentially telling them, which is one of the things he should have done a while ago, but the fact, it's a slow burn. Like, Endeavor's arc is a slow burn, especially with all these hints of the other son, with Toya, then the theories with Dabi, and who killed Toya, supposedly. Like, there's so much shit with him. His entire arc is going to be a slow burn. But I think that arc was a huge step forward for him as a character. Because he's like, listen, you don't need to forgive me. Which is, because I feel like they're feeling, and I understand it, it's almost like Stockholm Syndrome. You're with the person for so long that you want to be able to forgive him. But the problem is, it's not your fault in any of that. Like, it's none of their fault. So they don't need to forgive him. If you don't want to forgive me, that's perfectly fine. That's what he's telling his sons, essentially giving them that release. Like, stop, you don't have to worry about forgiving me. You don't need to forgive me at all. I'm just looking for atonement to try to fix what I broke, which is what he comes to that decision at the end of the arc, where he's like, I'm building a new house that is convenient for all of you guys' commutes. Meaning Fuyumi, Natsuo, Todoroki, and or Shoto Todoroki and his wife. I don't even know if they're still married. And then Fuyumi's like, well, what about you? And he's like, I'm staying here. Because he recognizes that the only way, the reality is that his existence and them seeing him all the time is a constant reminder of like a shitty home. Because that's what it was for them. And he recognized it and said, listen, you guys need to be happy. And Fuyumi deserves to have the family she wants. And he appreciates, I like the fact that he openly talks about how much he appreciates his daughter doing so much as she has. But he's like, you guys deserve that. So I'm going to make a home that doesn't involve me, that you guys can enjoy and walk into without me ruining it for you. And that shit hurt me because I knew he was right. I knew he was doing the right thing. But I'm like, you also need to understand, Endeavor, you're going to have to forgive yourself. For this to work, not only are they may not be required to forgive you, but you need to forgive yourself to some degree. And I was like, fuck. And see, that's the part about him I like, though, that he's still on his shit. He's still a caring father to a... That's why I want to see more of his backstory, like the teen, early adult years. Like, I need to see all that, because I feel like the thing with Endeavor is that and even the fact, and I think even his wife kind of alludes to it, Endeavor wasn't always like that. I don't think he was always like that. I think that was something that became an obsession during when he became a hero and competing with All Might, and it kind of drove him into the wrong frame of mind, and he stayed there for a while. And that's the core of his issue. But like, I need to see more of it. But he's a character I like because I know how hard he's trying. That's crazy, especially because I know motherfuckers who wouldn't even go for any of this. People who wouldn't even have that level of consideration, that he's still thinking about it. Like, that's not the mind of a person who's dog shit. He's definitely thinking and he's definitely trying. Hell, he's gonna say something in the beginning part of 5th season that kind of alludes to all this shit that comes up way later in the internship arc. That, like, he wants to focus on being a better father. He says it to Shoto during, he says something along the lines of how he wants to be a hero he can be proud of on, at the end of the school, like the fucking, the classes, like the remedial classes arc is what I'll call it. Like, it's that kind of subtle shit. The thing about Endeavor that hits so much for me is that he's a dude who fucked up and he's still trying. Well, like, Endeavor has so much shit he has to deal with. And to be fair, the family shit's self-inflicted because of how he acted. But he's dealing with it all. He's not complaining about it. But part of me feels bad because I'm like, that'll drive a person insane. That kind of guilt will drive a person absolutely crazy. But I don't want it to be a situation. And also the other problem is that when they first talked about like Endeavor abusing his wife and his son, we didn't get to see like full extent of it. All we know is that he made Shoto throw up, and he drove his wife to the point where she burned Shoto's face because of how much Shoto reminded her of her husband. I don't even know if they're divorced. And although those are some horrific things, I feel like because we never saw the full extent to like Endeavor's insanity, and the fact that he never did anything to Fuyumi or Natsuo, he was a fucking asshole, but he never did anything to Natsuo and Fuyumi, from what I've understood from like text. The two main people he abused were Shoto and his wife. Those are the two, which I think his wife's name is Rei, if I remember correctly. And the fact that even in the last episode of season 4 of the anime, they mentioned, and I think it was mentioned in the manga too, that like Endeavor brought her flowers. The flowers that she's only, I think, mentioned once that she likes. And that he's actually come over there to visit her numerous times. So it wasn't like the shit came out of nowhere. He's trying. And I got... he's a character I want to like more, but because of the nature of his history, I don't. But I still fucking like him because he's a dude who fucked up and he's trying and he's putting in the effort. To me, if you can't give the man credit for grinding and fucking trying to rebuild what he broke, he's not complaining. He's not bitching about not being forgiven. I think it hurt. I think the one part I felt bad about is that it hurt him a little bit when Shoto showed up with like Bakugo and Deku for the internship, and he was kind of hoping that Shoto had opened up a little bit more to him and the reality, and Shoto shut all that shit down. I felt bad because I knew what he wanted. He's still a father. He still wants that connection with his kids. He's a character I generally like. He's probably about, and I will say Hawks and him is like one of my favorite relationships. Oh, if you've been reading the manga as of recently, you know, rabbits are in. That's all I'm going to say about that, but that's besides the point. I just want to give Endeavor the video he deserves. He's like one of the best hero characters in the series, in my opinion. I think he is my favorite character in the series, period. I just like him a lot. It's funny considering he's probably one of the least likable heroes of the series. Yeah, because he's like the only hero that's shown to be like a fucking asshole when he's introduced. Except for maybe like Mount Lady. And Mount Lady wasn't like evil. She was just a bitch. But yeah, that's why I like Endeavor. And I want to give him his props. And being a father who fucked up but still wants to make amends, that takes a lot. It takes a lot for a man to be able to do that, and a lot of men won't do that, so I want to see more, and I'm looking forward to more. Anywho, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Name your favorite My Hero Academia character in the description. And we'll do some more of these in the future. But for now, I gotta go. I gotta go and get gone. Anywho, let's game, let it win. And remember, you're not having any fun if you're not going just a little bit crazy. Ha ha ha! Prominence,